Sorry. Yeah, recording now.
All right, well, welcome everybody to this week's workshop of quantum healing and health foundations. We're going to start today's workshop with a beautiful meditation offered by Felix to help us arrive in this space, prepare our energy bodies for the work that we're about to undertake this evening, and to soften us into our learning journey. So if you'd all like to prepare your bodies, allow yourself to find a comfortable, upright or lying down posture, allowing for length to exist between pubic bone and lower part of the rib cage. Soften shoulders down the back. Feel for allowing the chin to be slightly tucked towards the chest, almost as if we were holding an orange beneath the chin. And if it feels good, close the eyes as we begin.
Okay. I want to begin by taking a deep breath in through the nose, breathing in pink, unconditional, love, light energy. Breathe it into the stomach, the back, the chest. Allow the shoulders to roll back, the chin to open, and release out of the mouth vocally. Releasing that love energy into the room you are in. And then we repeat the breath 2 more times. Breathing in love. Taking it down the right leg and the left leg, the hips, the pelvis, up the spine. And release. And taking a deep breath in through the nose, breathe it into the heart space. Release. And just maintain a regulated breathing pattern in through the nose, out of the mouth, breath of the Father. Then inhale in through the mouth, out of the nose, breath of the Mother. And interchange those breaths for a few moments. In through the nose, out of the mouth. And as you do so, pull down a white energy into your body as you breathe in through the nose. Sending it down on the out breath, down to Mother. From Mother Gaia, pull up a powerful green energy when you breathe in through the mouth. And out of the nose, sending that energy up to Father Source. We'll just do a short clearing to remove energies, tension, stagnation. In this moment, I ask Archangel Michael for a tube of white light for all, grinding all down to the Michael crystal, the diamond core of Mother Earth. This moment, I ask Source for alignment for all, to release all patterns, programs, belief systems, and negative thought form, any implants of dark AI technology, and cut any energetic cords. This moment, I ask Source for alignment for all, to release all blockages within their bodies, all emotions that are not their own, and all energies that are not serving for their highest good. We can regulate the breath one more time, this time just breathing in through the nose, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out of the mouth slowly, raising the crown of your head, pulling the spine up, releasing, releasing the tension out of each vertebrae, out of the center core, out of the multidimensional body. Okay. This moment, I ask Source to please activate, open, clear, and heal all chakras for all people, from the Earth Star beneath the feet to the stellar gateway situated high above the head, and everyone in between. Take a breath, and on the out breath, feel and see your body expand, pushing outwards from the inside out and opening up like a flower in bloom, opening up, revealing your rainbow body. Kianto koros nom nama a hainye, tarashna atianto to oki kireshne enti mahanya. Naramdama atia toria eti kireshne enti nahatia hamdmoya ki kireshne e. Nahalas na atia toria nene eti lishni etiato oto pui kireshne etiana atianto tondia aado onia mama oki ki kireshne entiana atia totiana sna a honya mashmusk. Take a breath. Talos maha kain nishnia teremte snayanti taros noyanti amas mayana. Tusk kirish nayamte mahantia ato ikire. Nama astia na atia rasnu utu unye be kirish nianti na atia polia audomoya ne eti kirishnia. Nanam nama atia doyanti torishno uti koresni etianisne heya nana a. Hamdomoya kia kirishne etiana. Nahusk kurus nusk noyana atia tarayin yenene antiamama a hayau. Release. Release. Release all down to Mother Earth. This moment we ask Mother Gaia to please connect us all to the new Earth crystalline grid, the 5th dimensional grid. See and feel a golden light coming up from the planet's core, rising through your body, up the spine, out of the crown of your head, and pulling up into the Earth's atmosphere, connecting to the golden grid situated in the Earth's atmosphere. Connect that frequency to the web surrounding the planet. And then allow the frequency to flow through, down, out of the soles of your feet, down to Mother Gaia, and out the other side of the planet, creating a toroidal field. Namas Mahayi ki Rishni Indianasna Haros no Niana Etiarasna Automomo Oku Uti Puki Rishni Intinti Resne Etianta Toriam de Mama Atiata Tortiarasna Antian Tuto Uti Puki Resni Etianasna Atayan Tuto Uki Porianti Mama Atiata Nasna Atianti Torasna Uti Marianna ma atia handuash na atiati kirishni idiamas mahoya na atia honye eshti titirishni anyana. We ask for the highest possible outcome for all in the learning of these subjects, sparking and decoding new programs within their frequencies and fields to unlock new levels of understanding, awareness, cellular memory, machine kia hach korosnon, mahanti torosnoe adianti tarasna oti pokia haondon nos. Tatia harasnam dama ayete kish. Tato kirishni anti panya aodo ene eshtiate anti. Breathe. Feel the activation. Mahalas, Nayan, Ahai. Okay. If you'd all like to take a deep conscious breath in through the nose. Repeat after me. I am grounded. Allow yourself to wiggle your toes, your fingers and your nose. And when you are ready, please come back around and give us a thumbs up. We've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6. Brilliant. 7. I'm just going to say that everyone's ready because I can see eyes blinking, smiles on faces. Let's do it. Over to you, Suzanne.
Thank you. Welcome back. Okay. In week 1, we began our exploration of the body as a highly integrated, multi-dimensional entity. We started by considering some of the intrinsic factors that regulate health, such as our biochemistry, our biomechanics, subtle energy, emotions, and spirit. These intrinsic factors also integrate with extrinsic factors, energy fields, social and environmental forces, and the personal relationships that we're involved in day-to-day life. So we're starting to explore health as a balance of these forces. But how do we know when we're out of balance? Well, the answer to that question is we do know when we pay attention. Our felt senses or our somatic awareness tells us all that we need. When we have the awareness and knowledge to connect our experience with cause, We all have the power to make effective changes. The imbalances caused by poor breathing habits were all expressed through our senses. Fatigue and low energy is the expression of poor breathing, as overbreathing compromises cellular metabolism, energy production. We learned last week a little bit about that chemistry and how to work with it to affect positive changes in our health. We experience perhaps stress, anxiety, fear. Poor breathing often results in low carbon dioxide, and low carbon dioxide plays a pivotal role in the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which triggers our survival emotions, fight, flight, and fear. And some of us may have experienced pain and mobility problems. Chest breathing, a common cause of breathing pattern disorders, overworks the ancillary muscles in the chest, in the thoracic area, causing them to tire, shorten, and misalign shoulder, neck, and chest muscles. So, sensation is the language of the body. And when we know how to listen carefully, understand its message, and respond with skill, we can heal mind, body, and spirit. We can learn how to tune out the noise and interference caused by trauma, pain, discomfort, and dysfunction. And we learn how to create space to experience the divine energy of spirit and enjoy our dance as cosmic souls. In this second workshop, we'll consider the structural dynamics of fear and transformation, the relationship between trauma, fear, and negative emotions, and muscle function, biomechanics, emotional transformation, and spiritual growth. We're going to learn some deep tissue, neuromuscular, and yoga therapies to help us work with the body to move beyond the negative conditioning that's formed us. And let's all remember, the moment that we all stop experiencing and creating our lives through fear is the moment that we're all truly free. So let's make a start and take a deep dive into the very interesting world of muscles and connective tissue. Now, the musculoskeletal system is the framework that provides support and movement in the body. Muscles and connective tissue align and support the bony structures of our skeleton. Muscle tone and function determine skeletal alignment and coherent movement. Muscle tone and functionality is determined by a range of factors, which we're going to explore. And these factors include our diet, emotions, behaviors, and subtle energy flows. Muscles can exist in a range of states, from flaccid, floppy or weak, to hypertonic, excessive contraction, to balanced tone. A balanced muscle being a muscle, I don't know whether I think we need a camera, whereby the muscle, if I look at my bicep, can fully contract to move the arm, to bend the arm at the elbow, and can fully lengthen to extend the arm. Muscles work in pairs. When I contract my bicep, my tricep must lengthen. And in order to extend the arm, my tricep must contract and my bicep must lengthen. Muscle pairs are supported by muscles called synergists that help us to stabilize the joint and also help us to refine movement. So that's the basics. Now, muscular activity, whether we're talking about one muscle contracting and relaxing, or two muscles working in a pair, this activity exists within a highly sensitive communication framework. And this framework combines muscle connective tissue or myofascia and the central nervous system. So we have a nexus of muscle, connective tissue, and central nervous system activity. Connective tissue provides a system-wide connective communication matrix. Now, this is a highly sensitive tissue which transmits information in the form of electrical charges created by force and pressure. Connective tissue surrounds a muscle. So please, all the vegans and vegetarians, forgive me. But for those who are meat eaters, they may have experienced the fine sheath of skin that overlies a pork loin. It's almost transparent. It's quite tough. So that's connective tissue. That connective tissue not only surrounds the muscle, but it embeds into the muscle. And the structure of that tissue is such that every single movement is transmitted via the substance that comprises this tissue to every other part of the structure. So it is a system-wide network of communication. Now, connective tissue combines muscles into systematic flows or chains of continuity. Is everybody familiar with bladderwrack seaweed? Those long strands of flesh with bubbles of air inside. Can we nod if we're familiar with bladderwrack? Lovely. So if we can imagine that chains of muscles are connected in a similar way that the bubbles are connected with the seaweed tissue into a continuity of bubbles. Muscle continuities behave in the same way. So connective tissue forms a framework around and within individual muscles that connects one muscle to the next in the chain. Now we have 7, I can't count on my fingers, 7 major pathways of muscle continuity throughout the body. And I'll talk about one of those lines for a brief moment. And one of those lines is called the superficial back line, which connects the muscles from this part of the forehead all the way over the top of the head, all the way down the spine, splits at the pelvis to travel all the way down the back part of your body and to end up on the sole of your foot. So that is a major line of communication running up the back of the body. We have another line of communication, the superficial front line, which runs all the way down the front of the body and connects into the top of the feet. We have a spiral line of continuity that begins just underneath the base of the skull, attaching in either side of the cervical vertebra, runs down the neck, crosses over underneath the shoulder blades to come out, if I can stand up, to come out from under the shoulder blades, trace itself across the ribs, diagonally across the abdomen to connect into the hips and to run down the legs. So these are incredible lines that bind the body into a coherent matrix of communication and function. Now, I was going to talk about tensegrity structure. You can edit this, can't you? I have lost my tensegrity model. Has anybody seen a child's toy, which looks a little bit like a football constructed out of hollow rods connected with elastic? And when you press one end in, another part moves.
We've got one yes.
One yes, okay.
One yes. Ian's we've got a couple of yeses.
Okay, I won't develop on that. I've got a picture here. Okay, sorry. You're going to have to do a bit of editing, Felix.
That's fine. I'll let you off.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. If we can see this. This is...
There we go.
Can you see it? So this is a diagram that shows the connection of the muscles involved in the superficial backline of the body. Okay. And the function of the superficial backline is to pull us backwards. The function of the superficial front line is to pull us forwards. So the back pulls down, the front pulls up, and we have coherence between the two. So these networks, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, these networks of continuity form lines within the body that transmit. I don't think you can
lift it up a little bit. That's the dog, right? Or the rabbit?
It's a bunny.
Okay.
that shows you what a bunny would look like if it was comprised of compression units and expansion units. So compression units, when we're talking about tensegrity, compression units force something together and expansion units force it apart. Within the body, our bones comprise the expansion units and the muscles, the compressive units. I'll leave that there because it would have been a lot easier to talk about tensegrity. I've been up in the loft looking for my tensegrity model and it's disappeared somewhere. Anyway, that's just an interesting, a fascinating part of how harmonious, complex, and beautifully orchestrated the musculoskeletal system is. Now, muscle function in one part of the body is connected via this matrix and communicated to impact or inform other muscles, other parts of the body. So when we consider this network of continuities that run up and down the body, that cross the body, that have dominant lines of communication within fascial continuities, but also communicate to other connective tissues involved in other fascial continuities, we start to get a sense of this grid of communication, which is fascinating and can be quite mind-boggling when you're trying to work out why the pain in someone's rib needs to be fixed by fiddling with a muscle in their opposing ankle. Gives us lots of clues. So every part of the whole is in active relationship with every other part. That's how muscular dysfunction in one part of the system, like my client with extreme pain in the ribs, creates problems in terms of regional or global patterns of compensation, postural distortion, poor biomechanics, and pain conditions in another part. Now, another really interesting thing about muscles is every muscle in the body relates to an organ or a gland. Every muscle relates to specific ranges of energy frequencies and emotional states. So, for example, your hamstrings at the back of your thighs and your quadriceps, the front of your thighs, both relate to digestive function. Hamstrings relate to large intestine, quadriceps to small intestine. State of muscle impacts on organ, and state of organ impacts on muscle. Emotional states impact on muscle and organ function impacts on emotion. So we have a web of continuity that exists between all aspects of our being. So this really is a multi-dimensional, fascinating, marvelous creation that we spend our lives in. So we're starting to see a slightly bigger picture where the dynamic interplay of layers of interaction contribute towards balance, harmony, and health, or a feeding frenzy of pain, disease, and distress. And we can also start to get a sense of why it's important to listen to the body's whispers, because when it starts to scream, it's painful. So, having learned in module 1 the role that healthy breathing plays in arousal of the sympathetic nervous system and the creation and maintenance of our survival mode, survival emotions, our fight-flight response, we're going to focus on the main group of muscles associated with healthy breath function and the physiology of the stress response. So last week, we explored the role of healthy breathing mechanics. And we considered the importance of working with the diaphragm, large muscle, large parachute of a muscle that sits at the base of the ribs, broadens and flattens down, compressing the abdominal contents in the abdominal capacity as we breathe in. And this muscle moves back up to dome up under the rib cage as to allow us to exhale. Now, many situations in life contribute towards us shifting away from using this primary muscle for breathing to use ancillary muscles that lie in the chest, the intercostal muscles between the rib cage, muscles in the neck, and muscles in the shoulders. So when breath moves up into the upper body, we use muscles that are designed to be supportive of breathing, to support the smooth function of the diaphragm. These muscles are not designed to do the work of breathing for us. And because of the nature of these muscles, as we discussed last week, the diaphragm is a muscle that is designed to metabolize oxygen in a very, very specific and efficient way, so that it doesn't tire, so that it continues to breathe from the moment you take your first breath to the moment you draw your last. The muscles in the chest, shoulders, and neck are not postural muscles. They tire quickly, they use up oxygen quickly. And when we overwork them, they have a tendency to become tired. When they're tired, they shorten. When they shorten, they misalign posture by drawing head forward, raising shoulder blades up towards the ears like earrings, and rounding the shoulders in to compress the chest cavity. So we're going to start by considering a very, very simple neuromuscular exercise. Now, neuromuscular therapies rely on direct pressure using one finger directly into a nerve bundle. So when we use a neuromuscular therapy, we are directly talking to the central nervous system. And when we apply pressure, either direct pressure or a slightly a switching movement, what we are doing is using the pressure from our finger to tell a lie to the central nervous system. Now, the central nervous system is constantly monitoring the state of muscles, how much movement is going on, how much contraction, how much tension on attachments. And the central nervous system, like everything else in the body, becomes programmed. We practice what we get good at. And if the body is in practice of being in a shortened, tired state, the muscles in a shortened, tired state, the neurology gets used to that and thinks it's the default setting. So when we use a neuromuscular therapy, we're lying to the central nervous system. We'll apply pressure specifically into the nerve bundle that determines the degree of tone in the muscle. The central nervous system will say, ah! And send a message back to the muscle saying, relax. So, shall we have a little go? I'll demonstrate this first of all. Before we start, it can be interesting to have a little test. Now, I'm going to release one of my pectoral muscles that lie in the upper part of the chest, the boundary between chest and shoulder. And the length of this muscle plays a large role in determining how far back I can take my shoulder, okay? Without cheating and dropping my shoulder, because that looks like I took it back further, doesn't it? No cheating for me tonight. So when I do the test, I pay attention to my hips because it's quite easy for me to rotate my body and make it look like I'm like an owl and I can rotate. My arm can go back further than it actually can. So soften the shoulders down the back. Extend if it's comfortable. If you have frozen shoulder, just work with it or any kind of shoulder pain. Be gentle with the body. Do not take it into an extension that causes discomfort. Okay. So find a comfortable point and just see how far back the shoulder can go, the arm can go, before you start to feel any sense of tension or restriction in its movement. Yeah. Okay. Now lower the arm. Then we're going to take a middle finger and we're going to find, can you see me with the my name there? Can you actually see where I'm touching my body? Does that make it easier? Okay. We're going to find a slight depression. If we trace down in a diagonal line from the round, the ball of the shoulder, we'll find a slight depression. Can you find that depression? Yeah? And then what we're going to do is make a diagonal switch towards the collarbone. Now, when we do a switch, we're not sliding finger over skin. We are pressing in and switching. The skin which lies underneath your finger at the point of contact moves with the finger, and we use a moderate strength. So this is not always a light move. So I'll show you on this shoulder. So I'm going to find my point. I'm going to press in with moderate strength of pressure and switch about 2/3 of an inch up, and then I'm going to release. Yeah. Okay. If that was the arm you tested, even if it wasn't, lift it up and take it back and see how that feels.
I could just see Janina going, oh, when she's doing that. I don't mean to laugh. Sorry, love. I know your arm's
No,
so...
it can be quite painful. Okay, so let's try that again. Find that point in the shoulder, sorry, on the chest, and switch up towards the collarbone. Now, when you switch, make sure that the switch is towards the collarbone and you leave that point clean. If the finger moves back down in the opposite direction, we will undo the correction. Okay, and lift the arm and take it backwards again. How does that feel? Yeah, can you nod if that feels a little bit more open? Yeah, so balance is what we're working towards. So let's work on the opposite side. We can test the range of mobility in the shoulder and then draw the hand back down, relax and switch. Take a nice gentle belly breath through the nose and test the arm again, and just notice how the chest is feeling and how the shoulder is feeling. So thumbs up, anyone who feels that that's a little bit easier, maybe sore in the chest, whether you felt a little bit more movement. Yeah, good. Okay. That was the painless bit. So now we're going to come into the intercostal muscles. And when we do a neuromuscular technique, we can repeat it a number of times. And this pectoralis release is very easy to self-treat with. It takes a few seconds. There, and my shoulders feel like they want to drop back. The most important thing to remember with a neuromuscular technique that is directional, that is a switch, is to make the switch and lift off clean. Super. So coming into the intercostals, if we take the tips of our fingers, and it helps to have really short fingernails, in between the ribs, yeah. We can find, if we poke around in the center, we can find the hard bony structure of the collarbone. And if we pull away from the collarbone a little bit, we can we fall off the collarbone and we can fall into the spaces between the ribs. Yeah. And if we apply a little bit of deep pressure there, we might experience that they feel really tender. Super. How many people feel like that's a little bit owie in there? Yeah. So what we can do with the intercostals is we can insert, we can choose how many fingers, one finger. We'll start with one finger. So we're going to find a point roughly between second and third rib. Doesn't matter which ribs you're working with. And we press the finger in directly, the middle finger, and we switch outwards and lift the finger off. We take the finger a little bit further towards the shoulder, find the intercostal again, the space between the ribs, press in and switch. Move the finger a little bit further away towards the shoulder, finger in and switch. Release the arm, relax the arm, and just have a little feel into how that feels. Now you might feel some localized sensation of where you've pressed in. You can just rub the skin once or twice to remove that sensation. So come into the intercostals on the other side of the rib cage and make 3 firm switches, remembering to come off the skin clean, no sliding across skin. So we press in and switch. We're dragging the skin we first made contact with us with the finger and then taking off. Press in, switch out, lift off. Press in, switch out, lift off. We can then come down and find a rib a little bit, the intercostals a little bit lower down the body. We can use 2 fingers, in, switch, off. Move towards the shoulders, in, switch, off. In, switch, off. Take a nice belly breath and just take a moment to notice how that feels in the chest. Again, see if you can track into sensations that lie below any residual tenderness that may result from having a poke around in these unhappy muscles.
I felt a lot from that, actually, from an energetic perspective. When I did the first dual sides, I did that together, and clicked it 3 times, then my whole chest expanded outwards, as in the energy came outwards from inside, which pushed a lot of things out. I had memories that came up as well, which released a lot. There was a bit of emotion that came up too, I'll say. And I'm just seeing a flower open now as well. So I'm not too sure what that means just yet, but I'm sure I'll find out soon enough.
Lovely, nice results. So once again, working to release the intercostals is something that we can do. It's on the front line of the body. And something, did you want to say something?
I did, yeah. So that meant the flower opening over the heart space was actually the heart opening, the heart chakra opening. So it's a great tool just to, when you get stuck in more of a issues with romance or love problems, that this is a good place to start to unleash some of that tension regarding relationships or love. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, so a good, as Alex said, a good preparation as well for a meditative practice, just to help us soften the structures that surround the heart and that impact on breathing. Now, we're going to use the same technique, but we're going to move up the body and find the collarbone. And we want to find that little corner where the collarbone meets the breastbone. Doesn't have to be super accurate, just roughly. And again, we're going to come in quite close to the collarbone and the sternum, the breastbone. We're going to push a middle finger in and switch firmly towards the midline of the body. Lift off cleanly, move the finger up the collarbone towards the shoulder, press in, switch forward firmly. Come off once again, press into the flesh beneath the collarbone firmly and switch forward once again towards the midline. Now, we're going to release the top of this muscle. Sorry, I should have said this muscle release is to release a muscle called sternocleidomastoid, which connects into the collarbone and this point at the base of the skull, just behind the ear. So if we place our finger close to the ear, how's that view? Can you see, Alex? Felix?
Nice one. I literally just said that, but I was on mute. Yes, I can.
Okay, so we want to bring the finger just a little bit behind the ear, right on the edge of the bone. Press in with medium pressure and switch forward, lift off. Take the finger a little bit closer to the middle of the back of the head. Press in, switch forward, nice firm pressure, lift off. Once again, we're going to move that finger even closer to the middle of the back of the skull and switch forward. Lift the finger clean off. Now have a little move of the head, the neck, and just take a moment to notice how that side of the neck, the head, feels in relation to the side that hasn't had a little treatment. Thumbs up if one side feels better than the other now. Yeah, okay.
Suzanne?
Yes?
When we did that collarbone, the collarbone one, I did it 3 times, but then I felt all the issue in my hand. Do you know why?
No.
Okay.
Other than maybe there is some issue going on within the hand.
I haven't had any problems. It's just
No.
very bizarre. No?
Maybe
Okay.
maybe just the alignment of the muscles. The hand, you know, is quite an intricate network of muscles and tendons. So maybe just the position, and you are using a muscle that you wouldn't normally use in that particular position.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
So let's turn the head again. Well, I'm turning my head. We're going to place the finger close to behind the ear, press in and switch forward. Take the finger back towards the midline of the head, press in and switch forward. And do that once again, press in and switch forward. Come off clean. We're then going to come into the collarbone underneath the part of the skull that we were just working on. Find that little indentation between breastbone and collarbone, press in and switch. Lift off clean. Move the finger up the collarbone, press in, switch forward, come off clean. Do that once more, press in, switch forward, come off clean. Now feel how the neck feels. Thumbs up if it feels a little lighter. Yeah, good, great. So, really easy way to trick your central nervous system into letting go of a little bit of a tension. We can do it at work. We can do it at home. We can have a little flick when we're taking 5 minutes to go to the bathroom, you know, and we don't need any equipment. We've got fingers, so we can have a go. Okay.
Can we do simultaneously on both sides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Just adapt it. Be playful. Be playful. Feel into both. Be playful. Be playful with location. Yeah. You can, you know, as you start to, as human beings, we've lost touch with touch. We're often too busy to touch our own bodies. I know on my gravestone, I think I need to have physician heal thyself engraved on it, because because so many times, you know, even I will struggle on with pain and actually not stop and take the time to release my muscles until they're screaming. So, you know, we're all in the same boat here, but getting into a little habit of learning what we can do. And if we do this regularly, it helps to counteract the impact of those times when we are chest breathing, when our posture is such that, you know, it's not just breathing that rounds in the shoulders and draws us forward and our head forward. It's working on computers, it's driving cars. So, you know, these are things that we can do throughout the day just to militate against the worst effects that the activities of our life have on our body.
Thank you.
Super. So the next neuromuscular practice that we're going to have a look at is actually called esophagus release. Now, this release helps us to lengthen and soften the central tendon of the diaphragm. So I'm going to move this down a little to begin with. Now, at the bottom of the breastbone, we have a small triangular bone called the xiphoid process. And this is quite a fragile little bone. So whenever we're working in this area, we're very careful to gently locate it and move down below it. So my xiphoid process ends here. And I'm going to find a point, maybe 1.5 centimeters away from that. And I'm just going to leave my finger there for a moment as I come up to the top. So I'll describe this first, and then you can have a go on yourselves. And the next component of this neuromuscular move is to find the dip at the base of the throat where the two sides of the collarbone meet. And we want to be finding a pressure that just presses into the top of that bone. We are not pressing into the throat. If we get an uncomfortable sensation in the throat, our finger's in the wrong position. So we're using a roughly 45-degree push just into the top of the bone. Yeah. And then if we can come down to the finger that's sitting below the breastbone, below the xiphoid process, and turn the finger so that the edge of the finger, not the tip, so the hand is sideways onto the body. The side edge of the finger is pressing into the flesh below the xiphoid, and it's pressing in at a 45-degree angle, so it's in and up, while we simultaneously maintain pressure on the little notch at the base of the throat. So we want to use moderate pressure on the collarbone and firm pressure below the xiphoid. And we can just soften our eyes and take a couple of breaths and allow the diaphragm to breathe down through the pressure of the finger at the top of the belly. And then release both fingers and just take a moment to tune in to the senses that exist down the front of the body, from the throat all the way down into the belly. So where we're pressing in here is roughly in towards the 11th, the junction of the 11th and 12th rib. Yes, the 11th and 12th rib, which I forget which vertebra that relates to. So the diaphragm attachment attaches into the vertebra at this point. Now, this is an important point. This is a power point for the body. And this location, this attachment, also shares an attachment with a muscle that we're going to look at shortly called the psoas muscle. So we've released the central tendon of the diaphragm, which, again, be playful with this. Have a fiddle around with your body. Experiment with slightly different angles. Experiment with the amount of pressure that you use. And purely use it as an exercise to help you tune into the sensations of your body. When we're working in soft tissue, feel how much resistance is there. Just starting to become more intimate with the pattern of sensations that present themselves to you, either through touch or pure somatic awareness. Now, another little neuromuscular technique, again, very simple, but can be very, very effective, is a diaphragm release. And for that, we need to find the curve of the diaphragm. And again, we're pressing a finger, so the finger will be side on to the body, pressing a finger into the lower edge of the diaphragm. We're not on top of the diaphragm, we are coming underneath the diaphragm. And we press up and into the bottom edge of that, that rib. We're not on the diaphragm, we're on the rib, the lower rib. We press up and into the lower edge of the last rib and switch out. We bring the finger off clean. We bring the finger off clean. We move the finger towards the side of the body. We press up and switch. We remove the finger cleanly, move slightly towards the edge of the body, the outer edge, press the finger up into the bottom edge of the diaphragm and switch out. And then we can do that on the opposite side. We're pressing up onto the lower edge of the rib, switching out. Up, lower edge, switch out. Up, lower edge, switch out. And then take a moment to notice once again whether the thoracic area and the abdominal area feel any different. Yes, so we have a lot of muscles attaching into the lower part of the rib cage. Now, one of the great things about pain is it's a great teacher. So you could practice working with this move on that side of the body, underneath the lower part of the rib cage. So you can work with a switching technique, the neuromuscular technique, or you could take time just to allow your fingers to fall under the rib cage and gently massage that tissue. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why you might feel that you might find that these attachments can be quite tender, and also the muscles that emanate from these attachments. Because last week you shared with me that you do a lot of chest breathing. Yeah. And chest breathing tends to pull us forward, which can result in the shortening of the abdominal muscles. Because when we have a more upright stance, we can feel that. If we lift our bodies up without drawing our shoulders up, we can start to feel a lengthening between the top of the pubic bone and the bottom of the ribs. And Deborah, you might find if you do lengthening exercises there, or even extend that into a soft back bend, that you might feel a sensation of pull underneath the left side of your rib cage. But that's not to worry about, because these sensations are the language of the body telling us, I need some attention. So just a quick tip, trace the point where it feels sore down towards the pubic bone, and you might feel tension, tone, and tenderness in the belly of the muscle. Gently massage within that area, and combine that with just gently releasing the tendon doing the switch underneath the rib cage. Because not only do muscles become shortened because of activity, muscles become shortened after trauma or injury, whether it's emotional or physical. Muscles contract. And oftentimes, and this is, in my opinion, a little bit of a design fault, although perhaps the way we live exacerbates this design fault. After an injury or surgery, the body will contract around the site of the injury to protect the injured site, to stop us from causing further injury. That makes sense. However, depending on how long it takes for that injury to heal, however long that period of time is, the neurology is becoming habituated to the heightened tone that was the result of the injury. Does that make sense? So oftentimes, long after an injury is healed, the nervous system is still running an inappropriately contracted program to that muscle. It could be that the neurology needs resetting, or it could be that we still have areas of hypertonicity and adhesions. You know, when we have really, really tender knots in the body. Yeah. So dealing with elements that play together, and it may be one, it may be the other, or it may be both.
Thank you.
Yeah. So did most people feel any benefit from work, or any benefit from working underneath the rib cage? Yeah. Does that feel a little better? Okay. So now if we've talked about using neuromuscular therapies to open the chest, to lengthen the sternocleidomastoid, to get some length between the top of the sternum and the base of the sternum, to open up this area and to release and relax the lower part of the rib cage where the abdominal and oblique muscles attach. Now we can come up, I've saved the gruesomest bit for last, to, and believe me, can be gruesome. Yes, I'm surprised you haven't heard my clients screaming from where you all live at times. We're going to come in and work with a muscle that sits at the top of the shoulder called upper trapezius. And the trapezius is a muscle that draws the shoulder up towards the ear. Now, if we're not using our diaphragm, we can tend to overuse the trapezius, which really isn't a breathing muscle. Has anyone ever seen anybody who's used their shoulders to breathe? Yeah. Well, I remember one day a referral of a lovely man to come and learn mindfulness and meditation in one of my groups. And the NHS had referred him, and he arrived, gentle soul. He had just been released from St. Nicholas's Hospital in Newcastle, which is our psychiatric hospital here. And this lovely man had been suicidal for a number of years. They tried to teach him mindfulness in hospital. They tried everything and nothing worked. So they sent him to me. And the first thing I noticed about this man was that he couldn't breathe. He was using his upper trapezius to haul air into his body. So needless to say, I couldn't continue with that class and had to adapt it radically, because had I asked this gentleman to try and focus on his breath, it would have made matters worse rather than better. So at the end of the class, I said, I think you need to come and see me tomorrow morning, and I'm going to grab a pal and we're going to have a look at your body, because you're not breathing particularly well. And he said, no, I know that. So the following morning, this lovely fellow stripped off his shirt to reveal an incision from the middle of the neck all the way down to the lower back. At the age of 19, he'd had spinal surgery, plates inserted into the back, stitched up, no rehab, plates removed some years later, stitched up, no rehab. And the trauma of the surgery, in our opinion, myself and my friend, who's an osteopath, was that the diaphragm had become so traumatized as part of that procedure, it stopped working. And it took us 2.5 hours, 3 hours, both of us working, bringing our own techniques to actually try and seriously bully this muscle to start working again. And when it did, it was like the first breath of a newborn baby. Whoosh. And that man's life changed from that day. He needed a couple more follow-on treatments. He was a great guy. He's one of my best friends to date. He did his practice. His breath, his breathing changed his life. It changed his emotional state radically. He made radical decisions on the basis of a functional breath and a balanced nervous system to change his life, make more constructive decisions, got a new job, started teaching all the staff how to breathe properly, and went from strength to strength to strength. A phenomenal success story, all based on working with the power of the breath and working biomechanically to achieve that. So this lovely gentleman, nearly said his name, this lovely gentleman's trapezius was knackered. Yeah, when you touched it, it felt like concrete in some places and car tires in other places. So I encourage you, get your fingers and feel into this muscle that runs from the edge of the bony point, tip of the shoulder, up towards the neck. Have a little poke into that tissue and see if you can find a point that feels particularly lumpy. Now, you might find more than one lump. You might have one lump or two. Has everyone located a lump? Yeah. And when you poke in, how does that feel? Nasty. It's an Eddie Murphy moment. Nasty. Okay, so we've got one of two choices. We can gently work into that tissue. Make sure that we don't press in so hard that the body contracts against the pressure and the discomfort. And making sure that we apply enough pressure to actually get some work done. Now, as we press into this point, we might find that the pain transmits up into the head. Pain might transmit all the way down the arm, because sometimes these knots of tissue hide little nasties called trigger points. And trigger points are points at which the body very kindly channels all of the dysfunctional tension and isolates it in one place, thus keeping other aspects of the muscle working. But when we press into them, boy, do we feel it. So we can either massage into these areas, or we can use one finger, find the central point, the most painful part in that knot or adhesion, and press directly in, straight down towards the floor. Now, we can use quite firm pressure here in the upper trapezius. Hold the pressure for no more than 20 seconds, breathing down into the belly as we do so. And remove the finger and just feel how that feels. Does that make that shoulder feel any different? Yeah. So we might feel that the shoulder we've just worked on feels like it's fallen down the back a little bit more. So then we need to go into the other side and do the same thing. So just take a moment or two to find the most gruesome and ghastly element of this muscle. We might want to just work the fingers around and into the whole body of that muscle for a few minutes. Because we would always choose to massage before we use a neuromuscular treatment. Because neuromuscular is highly specific, a directional movement that communicates directly with the central nervous system. And then if we rub over it afterwards, it's sending another confusing message to the neurology. And then once again, once we find the most painful point, we can press a finger right into the epicenter, firm, direct pressure. Probably going to generate some degree of pain, but that's okay. Allow the shoulder blade to soften down the back as we do this. And then when we're ready, release, and just see how the shoulders feel after that little bit of TLC. Does anybody have any questions about any of those moves, those techniques? No? Super. Okay. We're running at 6:30. So the last muscle I wanted to talk about that relates specifically to fear is a muscle called the psoas. Now this muscle, see if I can get a sense of it on the screen. There, that's what that muscle looks like. It attaches in between the 11th and 12th rib, the lowest part of the thoracic vertebra, and it has attachments all the way down the lumbar vertebra, and it snakes behind the head of the femur to attach there, top of the thigh bone. It joins, it shares this lower attachment with this muscle here that sits within the bowl of the pelvis called the iliacus. And so oftentimes this whole muscle complex is called the iliopsoas. Now, I'm going to have to move. I need to move this a little bit to show you some things. Bear with me 1 minute. Right. I should have said talk among yourselves, shouldn't I? I missed a trick there. Okay, if I step back, put the light on. I don't know if you guys can see me. Needs to go higher up.
Needs to be tilted forward slightly so I can get the whole view of you.
Okay, let's see what we can do with 2 books. Can you see the whole view?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's good. We just got a bit of your head cut off.
Oh, that's probably not a bad thing. So this muscle attaches into the vertebra between the 11th and 12th rib. It has attachments all the way down the spine. It runs deep too, so behind the contents of the abdominal cavity, and it attaches in to the inside back of the thigh. Now, this is a really important muscle when it comes to the stress response, because when the pelvis is locked, when this muscle contracts, it draws the body forward. When the spine is locked, it draws the thigh upwards. And when we combine those 2 movements, we understand that it brings us into the fetal position. So the psoas is the primary muscle that holds our stress response. For any of us who sit and meditate, either on a chair, sit on the floor, oftentimes, when we notice our mind has gone off to thought and we come back into the body, if we check the alignment of our posture, we will have contracted forward. Okay, so this muscle is activated by fear, stress, and trauma. This muscle relates to the bladder and the kidney meridian. This muscle organ complex exists within the energy frequency field of fear. So when we work to release the psoas, to lengthen it, and by lengthening, we strengthen it because a long muscle is a strong muscle, we not only improve the function of the muscle, biomechanic coherence, but we also go a long way to releasing trapped energy and trauma that remains in that body. In the same way that repeated bending or repeated sitting with the knees up, because sitting puts the psoas into contraction as much as bending, that embeds a contracted state into the neurology. Now, just as much as a psychological and emotional trauma will impact on the state of that muscle impacts on our psychological and emotional state. So once that a contraction is held within any muscle, psoas in particular, and we maintain some degree of forward flexion because of the contraction in that muscle, that sends a message to the brain that we are stressed, unhappy, traumatized, or depressed. Think of the posture of someone you know who's always unhappy, who's depressed, or suffers from anxiety. Forward. If we look at the work, the fantastic work of an early pioneer in somatic psychology, a guy called Kellerman, we come to understand through his work that there are, here's that number again, 7, I managed to get the fingers right this time though. There's growth here somewhere. 7 major patterns of physiological response to stress. One of those postures is forward and collapsed. Very common. Other postures are bracing postures. You might see this in policemen with shoulders excessively back. 7 main postures that we adopt. So our psychology informs our physiology, and likewise our physiology informs our psychology. Now, we may have had an emotional trauma at the age of whatever. Psoas and other related muscles contract as a response of that trauma. Unless we release the muscular component of that nexus, at some level, the psychological trauma will still be being run subconsciously because of the relationship between muscle and psyche. So working with muscles is to lengthen and strengthen and release the energetic components, the emotional components that are held within that tissue is essential. So I'm going to try and see if I can position this chair so that you can have a little look at a really, really nice practice that can be quite gruesome depending on how you do it, to lengthen into the psoas. Then we're going to have a little look at, it's difficult to work with the psoas with a neuromuscular therapy, but we can explore how to just work into that tissue using a deep tissue technique. So I'm going to move the chair and I'll be guided by you guys to see if you can see me. Okay. Have you guys got this on full screen? So does it look a bit bigger? Yeah, that's good. Okay. So when we think of the psoas, connects here, connects here. And one of the places that we will discover a pattern of sensation as we lengthen this muscle is in the hip region, because the psoas is referred to as a hip flexor. Okay. So thinking about entering into a posture whereby we can lengthen this muscle, we'll think about working with a lunge. Now, we don't have to do anything fancy. We might want to use a chair to support us. And in order to move the body into the lunge, we might want to step, we'll start by stepping our left foot forward, and we can step back, drawing the straight leg back behind us. Leg straight, knee slightly soft. We don't want a locked knee. Feel for dropping the shoulders down the back and bending into the leg that is in front of us. And as we bend into that leg, we drop down into a lunge, and we can start to feel a pattern of sensations emerging the top of the thigh up into the pelvis. Now, it's important when we do a lunge that we think a little bit about what our tailbone is doing. If our tailbone is sticking out, we have an excessive curve in the lumbar. When we tuck the tailbone down, that lumbar curve flattens into a more natural and healthy curve. So as we step back into the lunge, we want to think about just tucking that tailbone. I like to imagine that I've got a piece of rope attached to my coccyx, and that rope runs in between my legs and comes up. And when I pull it up, my tailbone drops down, and the front of my pelvis tilts back ever so slightly to form a more neutral pelvic alliance. I have an anteriorly tilted pelvis, so I must make sure that my tailbone is tucked to keep my lower back safe. So once again, we step back, we find a comfortable position between the front foot and the back foot, back leg straight, but without locking the knee, shoulders soft, bending into the front leg to start feeling sensation of lengthening in the thigh, in the hip flexor. And if we feel as though we can lift the arms and come into a proper lunge. And we can hold this posture for 5 to 8 breaths, allowing time for the body to naturally use the process of reciprocal inhibition, which will soften the muscle when lengthening. When we're ready to come up, hands on the chair, step forward. Oh, and feel the difference. And of course, we'll repeat that on the other side. Could everybody see that? Well, it's a good thing when we do a lunge. One of the common problems that emerges for people. I'll just see. Can you still see me here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is, I'll take the opposite leg back. When we drop down into the lunge, there are an awful lot of factors to bear in mind when we're doing a lunge. So I can be a real show off, and I can drop down into an incredibly low lunge because I am hypermobile in places. But if you could see what was happening to the foot of the straight leg that's heading out behind me, my heel is this far off the floor. Now, that's okay because I'm choosing to work into my hip flexors. What people might find is when they take the leg behind them, is they feel a sensation of contraction and tension up the back of that leg. If that's the case, lift the foot off the floor or allow that foot to move closer to the leg that's in front of you and keep the lunge higher. So play with those dynamics until you can feel that the lengthening component of that practice is within the hip flexor. Now, as any good yoga teacher would tell you, yoga, certainly in my opinion, involves 80% awareness, 20% effort. Yoga isn't about being super flexible or super strong. It's about a balanced combination of carefully working within the current limits of your body to balance effort, lengthening, strengthening, and awareness. And once we lose awareness, we lose the coherence of any practice. So awareness is important to work softly and carefully with the body and respectfully with our bodies. But it's also the key component of transforming the neurological dimension of muscle function and biomechanics. Because the more we pay attention to the somatic experience, whether it's the psoas lengthening or the pain underneath our rib cage, the more we bring attention to our somatic experience, the more we can rewire the neurology. So we got to feel what we're doing, which means that we need to pay attention to our breath and only work into the soft edge, the softest soft edge of discomfort. Because that's the place in which the body will afford us the most release. And that is the place where we'll be able to maintain a high level of awareness to facilitate neurological reprogramming. So I'm just aware of time now. It's 18:50. There are a couple of other things I'd like to cover, but maybe we can look at some of those in another time. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed that little canter through the relationship between mind, body, energy, emotions. And I'll hand over to Alex. But if people would like to stay at Felix, I don't know. Alex has always been Felix.
It's a past life, love. It's a past life.
You think so?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So I'll hand over to Felix for a beautiful meditative practice to integrate this work and then we can have questions at the end. Okay, lovely.
Brilliant. That was lovely. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, guys. So today, what we're going to be doing is looking into balancing anger within the body and balancing fear within the body using light frequency. This is a method that I do in my sessions with clients as a part of a DNA reprogram. So it is looking into the memories of fear or the memories of anger, and then counterbalancing them with the opposite of that frequency on the spectrum of emotions. So that being said, if we were to find a memory or find a an area of fear stored within the body, then what we would do is, after we have grounded and protected ourselves, is to then allow the scene to rise, or allow the emotion to rise, feel it, but at the same time, we will be harnessing universal energies and applying intention to a specific color that resonates for you individually. So you will allow the color to present, but also you will know which, whether you need love, whether you need joy, you might need confidence to overcome this fear. It's all relative to the area of the body that it's stored in. So it could be, if it's fear residing in the solar plexus, it might be that you have had an interaction with somebody at work, maybe a boss, that has made you feel anxious. And when you break down that anxiousness and look behind it, you will get secondary emotions and tertiary emotions, which will come up and usually be a state of fear mixed with a state of anger. And this can also go down into different areas. Now, when we look in this, when we look into the area where the emotion is stored, 9 times out of 10, I have found that the blockage will also then present in multiple regions of the body. It might not also be within the body, it might also be outside of the body. So this is then when we are linking up the multidimensional body with the physical. So that's looking into the physical body, emotional, mental body, etheric, and then we've actually got 7 bodies in total, which is spiritual, mental, spiritual, emotional, and then we've got the causal, the oversoul. So there's quite a lot. We've got quite a lot of bodies. So if you're ready, we're going to just jump straight in by taking a deep breath in through the nose and releasing. Regulating this breath, breathing in love, breathing out love, releasing all into the room, filling your space with pink love frequency. I want you to visualize a tube of light coming down over you and through you, grounding you into the earth, the diamond core. Follow that light all the way down. You can intent along with this. I am grounded down to the diamond core of the earth. I want you to feel and see your protection. Setting your intention, I am protected in all timelines, all realities, all dimensions, for all universes. See and feel a golden light coming from your heart, expanding outwards, above you, below you, all the way around. Just notice if there are any holes open within your field, and just take some liquid gold in your mind's eye and just coat the areas that feel open. Okay. What we can do now is close the root chakra, shrink it down to the size of a dime, 5p piece, disconnecting from the root chakra. Should bring a soft calm over the lower portion of the body. Coming up to the sacral chakra, shrink it down to the size of a 5p piece, disconnecting from the relationship center. Take a breath. Front and back, close down. Now going up to the solar plexus, we're going to close down that solar plexus center, shrink it down, disconnecting from the emotional body. Take a breath. Okay. Going up to the heart center, we open that chakra up to the width of the body, front and back. Opening up the connection to unconditional love. Going up to the throat chakra, open that chakra up front and back. Activating the blue light, activating crystal clear communication. Brilliant. I just felt a lot of people's base of the spine, the back side of the spine, kind of, I'm going to say convulse, just slightly. And this is because people are coming into a state of fear in relation to having to speak their truth and their minds in the day-to-day life. So it's important that we understand the link between the chakras. Usually the solar plexus and the throat work together, the sacral and the heart, and the root and the third eye. So now going up to the third eye chakra, we activate and open that chakra front and back, connecting that indigo light to crystal clear intuition. And now activating and opening the crown chakra, the center of manifestation. Opening up the flow to source and source energy. Now from Mother Gaia, I want you to pull up a powerful green energy into the body, into the solar plexus. Visualize it, feel it, see it, know it. And from source, pull down a powerful gold frequency into the body, mixing together at the center core. Take it up the right leg and up the left leg. To the hips, cleaning out the lower half of the body. And sending down 10% of that frequency down to Mother Gaia to open up a channel of elimination and also to create a healing for the planet. Norosmonti Mahayana Atianti Kirishni Inti Tarasna Ato Uti Pukianishni Itianti Titi Arashna Karasna Andamamo Atiatianti Porosno Uski Kirishni Itia. Kahamish na Atia Hoku Ush Doyenesh Niatianti Aram Dumoy. Okay. At the center core, now I want you to take 70% of that energy up your spine and out of the crown of your head like a fountain, pushing out everything from the upper part of the body out on the outside of your sphere. As it does that, you are healing your matrix reality. You are cutting all cords surrounding you. And just allow that to fall down around the outside of the field. And then going back to the center core, you're going to take the rest of that energy up the spine, down the arms, and out of the palms of your hands, filling the inside of your circle. And here, you are going to allow yourself to breathe it in to the skin. Breathe in the green and gold to the skin. Breathe it in to the pores, into the muscles, into the bones, and down to the cellular level. Transforming all darkness into total light. So we have now prepped the body for the deeper energetic work. And I want you to take your consciousness down to your solar plexus region. And just allow yourself to start scanning from here downwards. And allow yourself to feel if there are any emotions that rise. If you can get one of low vibration, maybe anger or fear. Or alternatively, if you struggle to do it this way, and I want you to look back within your life from today, going backwards to the very last time, the last time that you felt angry. I had a moment today that I felt angry. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to breathe with my body, holding this memory. at the front of my mind's eye is my attention on my heart, and I'm going to feel where this emotion is presenting on my body. And at the moment, I'm getting it slightly underneath my belly button and at the back of my tongue, which signifies this is in relation to a person that I have unfinished words to speak. Knowing that tension upon my chest has presented, which is where the full anger resides like a blanket. Just allow yourself to receive this information from your body. Koranti mahanya anashna atiask. Tukye reshni intinisni ane eshni ala akiyarasna. Okay. So, with that memory and that emotion that is stored within the certain area of your body, for me, the chest, linking to the sacral and the tongue, I'm now going to bring forward from the universe, I'm going to pull down a powerful frequency of white, unconditional love. White diamond dust, unconditional love to balance this anger. Allow it to fill your body. See it happening, feel it happening, know it happening, whatever feels real to you. You can bring your attention to your feet for the ones who are finding it difficult to feel the body. Let your consciousness flow to your feet, and then your entire body fills up like a jar of milk. Take some deep breaths. This is balancing the emotion of anger. Now, whilst doing that, the feeling that I haven't said my piece or had the confidence to say what I needed to say arisen. It's the feeling of anxiety and nervousness. So I now bring through a yellow frequency of strength, courage, confidence, and I bring that into my body. surrendering to the frequencies. Now, as I look at my body, I'm seeing an aftershock sine wave of discomfort, a little bit of panic, so identifying that, it may come to you as a feeling. I'm feeling and seeing at the moment. I then bring through a turquoise light, as this feeling is in between my heart and my throat chakra, and very much so on, I feel like I'm picking this up on someone else actually in the group, but the nipples or the breasts, they feel very tense. So I bring through the frequency of serenity in a turquoise light, linking to the high heart chakra, which is currently going through expansion for everyone on the planet at this time. And to seal this practice, I always like to bring through joy, bliss, euphoria, and neutrality for any situation, which is in gold, the highest frequency color. Just allow that to flow through your bodies. And just like that, the chest pain has gone. The tenderness in the breasts disintegrated. And the release of something within the solar plexus, coming straight up the front of my body and out of the throat chakra. Kianto korosno ondi mama a hashin tirishnia. You can now bring in white diamond dust into the crown, filling the body with purity, source energy. You are going to close down the heart, the throat, the third eye chakra, and open the solar plexus, open the sacral, and open the root. Maintain the visual of your aligned chakras, your protection, and the flow of energy running through you. And when you are ready, you may come back around. And I want to thank everybody for attending today. Suzanne, is there anything you'd like to say before we end the recording?
No, thank you very, very much for joining us. I hope you've learnt something of interest and that might benefit you. I hope you've had a little bit of fun as well. And we both look forward to seeing you in workshop 3. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you.